and jump right in. So today's webinar is on how to measure and optimize your marketing and advertising spend, presented by InfoTrust. So to get right into it, my name is Amin Shaki. I am your moderator today and presenter. I work for InfoTrust. I'm the regional managing director here in the MENA region. A little bit about InfoTrust. We have offices both in Cincinnati and in Dubai. I'm actually broadcasting from Dubai at the moment. But we do these types of training programs and free webinars all year long for a variety of different clients. We're Google Analytics certified partners, so we have an in with Google as far as updates to the product and access to new betas and capabilities. So we support thousands of websites annually, and our day job is Google Analytics and measurement strategy. Some example of our clients: we work with Fortune 50 CPGs, FMCGs, top retailers and e-commerce customers, as well as some of the largest media conglomerates in the world as well, providing measurement strategy, technical implementation support, reporting, analysis, optimization, you name it. When it comes to Google Analytics and just digital analytics in general, we provide that service. A little bit just about our capabilities, again, to frame up on who we are and how we're going to go through this presentation. Talked a little bit about our services, but also we have digital products that we've built that support our web analytics consulting services, such as Analyzely, which is a data integration product, as well as Tag Inspector, a data validation product to confirm that you have accurate data. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about Analyzely and how it can help with measuring and optimizing your advertising spend within Google Analytics specifically. So as far as the agenda for today, we're going to first talk about how to measure your marketing channels with Google Analytics, how to actually set up the tracking, some tips and tricks for on-site tracking, off-site tracking, and actually integration with those marketing platforms. And then I'm going to close with a little bit of somewhat of a demo or just some screenshots from Google Analytics' interface regarding the attribution modeling tools or some of the more sophisticated reports that you can leverage to analyze and optimize your marketing spend. So please let me know if you guys have any questions. Again, the chat pane or questions panel, I'm trying to monitor that as best as I can, and hopefully we don't have any more technical glitches. But to get started, I'd like to first cover how Google Analytics actually collects data or how it works and some of the things to keep in mind. So this image is really a good reflection of how Google Analytics captures data. Essentially, you have your website or mobile application loads, or a visitor comes to your website or mobile application, and the JavaScript or the code of Google Analytics begins to fire. It reads data off of your website or mobile apps, reading cookies or out of the URL if it's on your website, and passes that information into the Google servers where the data is processed, aggregated, and the reports are built and passed out. I think we have another organizer from our team joining in case there's any other technical glitches. So thank you for that. The key here, though, as far as how Google Analytics collects data to keep in mind is when it comes to measuring your marketing channels or advertising spend, there's some work that actually needs to happen even before your website or app loads. And that's what we're going to talk about in the first section, is setting up your campaign tracking or ensuring the way your sources are or users are using your sources to get to your site are properly tracked in Google Analytics. And we'll kind of go through the steps there. Other ways that Google collects data, Google Analytics, worth noting, is through its capabilities with the data import or other data integrations. And the reason I wanted to point this out is because when you're thinking about your advertising spend or marketing channels, if you're using other Google products like Google AdWords, YouTube, or even DoubleClick for some of your campaign management, those tools can actually auto-integrate with Google Analytics to pass in the additional data that we're going to be talking about here in a little bit around off-site interactions like impressions, clicks, or the cost of your ads. But also with Google Analytics, there's a data import capability, particularly with the new Universal Analytics enhanced version of Google Analytics, where you can actually bring in external data sets from other systems and import it directly into Google Analytics, such as your CRM system, your CMS system, or your point of sale system. But particularly for this webinar, we're going to talk about your spend or cost data from your marketing channel systems. So whether it be your Facebook data or Bing data or other non-Google owned marketing vendors, how do you actually bring in the additional data beyond just the fact that the sessions that were generated from users clicking on those ads, but actually how do they engage with those ads, or how much did those ads cost? We're going to focus a lot about that portion. And Analyze, like I mentioned before, it's our data integration tool. It actually automates the process of data importing. So the end state that I want to give a little teaser for is something like this. This could be a report when all of the tracking is in place that you could have access to within Google Analytics. And this report alone is enough to start measuring and optimizing your ad spend. So let me walk through this report for a quick minute. You'll see here in Google Analytics, you'll have your sources that are bringing traffic to your site, generating sessions. And for Google AdWords or Google CPC, if it's auto-integrated with Google Analytics, you'll have the additional data like impressions, clicks, cost, and these other metrics like cost per click, return per click, RPC, or return on advertising spend, ROAS, all available to you because of the automatic integration between AdWords and Google Analytics. What you might not see is your other channels like Bing or Facebook. You might see the fact that they're bringing sessions to your site, but without leveraging the data importing process, you won't be able to see impressions, clicks, and cost. This particular screenshot is an example of the type of insights that you can achieve when you connect all your marketing vendors' systems into Google Analytics and pull in this additional data like impressions, clicks, and cost. The main metric, I guess, that I like to focus on, especially when working with e-commerce or retail clients that actually have revenue or orders available within their website or mobile app, is return on advertising spend. This essentially takes into account two inputs, revenue and cost, and thus the calculation of return on your ad spend. So by integrating things like Bing or Facebook, pulling in the cost data, combining it with your revenue data, you'll see the return. So one example here of how you can actually leverage this report is you can see that Google CPC is bringing in the most sessions. That's how it's sorted here. You're investing the most in it, and this particular example has the most cost, but return is still positive. It's 120%. But if you look down a few rows at Facebook, not bringing in as many sessions, not as much of an investment, only $300 versus $11,000, but the return on advertising spend is 250%. That's nearly double, or that is double, a little bit more, what Google AdWords provides as far as bang for the buck or return. So the insight here, or the potential outcome and just way you can optimize your advertising spend or even just your marketing budget, maybe put a little bit more investment in Facebook advertising, see if you can keep the return on advertising spend high, and just drive your bottom line. Create more profit, get more of a margin, because it looks like Facebook has more willing consumers, I guess, that want to purchase. Now we're going to talk about in this webinar how if you're not an e-commerce retailer and you don't have purchase capability on your site, how you can still get some of this data around just tracking conversions or different goals like form submissions or other micro conversions, and we'll get to that as well. Another outcome, once you have this complete setup, is just different dashboards. I took this screenshot straight from a client's setup. There's nothing in here that's personally identifiable about that particular client, but you can see that they have integrated Google AdWords, Google CPC with GA automatically, but they've also pulled in their other marketing channels that they're using to try and acquire different consumers. Because they're an e-commerce retailer, you can actually see the return on advertising spend. And you can see different things like which ones have the lowest cost per transaction or which ones have the highest return on advertising spend, and begin determining where your marketing budget can be reallocated to try and improve across all these metrics and still get the most bang for your buck. So this webinar is not designed to tell you to spend more online. It's more just to be smarter how you spend online, be more data driven, and hopefully it gives you the tools and techniques to do that. So I don't see any questions or anything in the chat pane, so we'll continue on. So how to actually get started in Google Analytics setting this up? Well, first it's important to note how Google recognizes different sources or different places that users are coming from the internet to your site or application. So there's some automatic channels or ways that Google buckets different sources of traffic. and they're listed here. Most of you are probably familiar with this if you've used Google Analytics ever before. And they're pretty self-explanatory. Paid search channel is from a paid search ad. Organic search from organic. But the key note here is that these channels are available out of the box for how Google can define or defines the sources that are bringing users to your site, but they're also customizable. So if you're running your own affiliate marketing, or you're doing paid and organic social postings and you want to split those into two different channels, you can certainly do that. And that's where the channel groupings comes into play. So if you've never used or modified your channel groupings settings, it's certainly doable. It's under your view section in the admin panel. And essentially what I'm showing here is an example from a different client that has set up their very customized channel groupings to split things like paid search between generic paid search and branded paid search. Meaning if the consumer uses a term that is their brand name, they would be bucketed under branded paid search channel. Versus if they're searching just in general for their products or something around their business without using the brand term itself, that would fall under generic paid search. And among other channels like affiliate advertising and so on and so forth. If you don't modify your channel groupings, but you are tracking your different campaigns and channels using campaign tracking, which we'll talk about here in a minute, you might see in your reports under the channel grouping reports this other channel, which essentially means Google did not know how to categorize these particular sources into the appropriate channel grouping. So instead, it just by default throws them into an other channel, which isn't very useful when you're trying to optimize or review different channels and how they're performing, because other is kind of a catch-all. You could use the source medium dimension, but this is one way you can clean it up is just optimizing your channel groupings and your configuration in Google Analytics. So I wanted to point that out. But as far as actually setting up tracking, again, for those that use Google Analytics, this might be review. Hopefully it's a good refresher, but traffic sources and channels are powered by the parameters that are included from the sources of traffic. And there's 5 parameters that Google Analytics automatically picks up from users coming to your website. And that includes source, medium, campaign, content, and keyword or term. Any source that brings traffic to your site, whether it's from an organic search engine or a click on an email, it could have these 5 parameters for Google to automatically recognize where they're coming from. So your reports can be more reflective of the way you want to see your different channels and different sources. So the key here is to note that the medium parameter is primarily what powers the channel definitions. Whether it's the automatic definitions that Google provides, or if you customize it yourself, you can use the medium parameter. So you can see here, for example, organic search coming from Google would be categorized as Google Organic Source Medium, and because organic is the medium there, it would bucket it under organic search. Where in contrast, if it was a paid click, it would be categorized as Google CPC for source medium, and thus added to the paid search channel instead of the organic search. So these are all customizable, and there's a link in here that, with the recording and with the slides provided to you afterwards, you can check out how Google automatically buckets different things into channels so that you can reference it as you're building out your campaign tracking. Speaking of campaign tracking, some best practices. The way campaign tracking works is for any link that you control, that you can post out on the internet, whether it's on social media or within your emails or on affiliate websites, etc. If you are posting your landing page to get people to come back to your website, you can simply add these UTM query parameters into that landing page with certain values for how you want that source of traffic to appear in your reports. And again, reminder, there's 5 parameters that Google Analytics can use: source, medium, campaign, content, and keyword or term. And by labeling these or adding these to your inbound URLs, your reports will be populated in an appropriate way. Now, the reason we have the title of this slide stating consistency set up is because it's really important to note that if you're running a lot of different newsletters or email marketing, you want to keep your UTM parameters consistent for source and medium, because that's how the channels are powered. You can customize it down at the campaign content or term level if you wish to have a little bit more specific data around that particular link or that particular email. But it's important to keep some of the parameters very consistent across your organization. So in Google Analytics, when you review the reports, it aggregates those together appropriately. If you were to use UTM medium equals all lowercase email for one email, but then capitalize it in another email, Google Analytics will actually count that or show it as two separate sources of traffic. It'll split it in the reports, and it makes it much more difficult to measure and optimize your marketing channels. So what we do for our clients, we actually build this Google Analytics URL builder spreadsheet. It's very similar to the Google's URL builder that they have available online, except because it's a spreadsheet, we can do two things. One, keep track of previously used query parameters and values so that we can maintain consistency with how we're actually using these query parameters. Especially for a larger organization where you have multiple marketers, this will be very useful to ensure across teams the nomenclature is kept similar so the reports are very clean. This also can have data validation baked into it. For some of our clients, we actually bake into this spreadsheet a drop-down selector, so it's only one of 10 values can be set as the source, depending on where you're actually marketing or advertising. Or for medium, it's one of 6 mediums because there's only 6 to 10 different channels that different sources can bucket into. So it's really important to think ahead early on about how you want your media or advertising to show up in Google Analytics for the sessions that come from those different clicks and different ads. One thing I want to point out, though we don't go too deep into it, is that mobile apps can also have campaign tracking available or tracked. So there's mobile app install tracking capabilities with Google Analytics for both Android and iOS. On Android, it's Google Play Store integrated with Google Analytics to pull in all that data. For iOS, there's a little bit extra steps beyond getting the SDK or the tracking on your app. You do need to set up some tracking as well, similar to the UTM campaign tracking that we described before, but just with another value, which is the IDFA or the ID of the device. So there's Google support documentation about that. It's kind of a separate webinar we're actually going to have purely on mobile app tracking. So make sure to sign up for that, I believe, in a month or two. But just I wanted to highlight this because in Google Analytics, you can see what different campaigns and what different advertising channels drive mobile app installs. And all of the reports I'm going to show, or the reports I've showed before, like from analyzing the cost data and ROI or ROAS, can also be applied to mobile app installs as well. So keep that in mind that mobile apps are not excluded here. Even though I don't focus on them, they're also, all these capabilities are available within GA for mobile apps as well. All right, so importing cost data. I talked about this a little bit before with Analyze.ly's capabilities, but just as a reminder, out of the box, if you have UTM campaign tracking, or even if you don't have UTM campaign tracking, most of your sources will automatically be tracked by Google Analytics, such as search engines, referral links, social links, etc., bringing users back to your site. So you will have session volume included in Google Analytics, but that's it before. With Analyze.ly and with the data import capabilities, you'll be able to pull in impressions, clicks, and cost, which unlocks these other metrics here like click-through rate, cost per click, return on advertising spend, return per click, etc. So this is what can be done or can be accomplished using the data import capability. We like to promote, of course, our own tool, Analyze.ly. You can check it out, analyze.ly, and there's some how-to videos and a little bit of a walkthrough of how it works. But it's our cloud-based solution that automates this process. Because with Google Analytics, you can certainly import directly on a daily basis or weekly or monthly a file of all of your ad data, like ad spend, ad impressions, etc., and have Google Analytics read it and display it in the reports that way. Well, we built a tool that actually helps automate this process. For a lot of organizations that we start working with, they already have a manual process that they create in Excel, which pulls down all the GA data around different channels that are bringing sessions in. But then from each and every marketing channel, they log into that separate system to pull down additional metrics like impressions, clicks, costs, and aggregate it into that one single spreadsheet. Our goal is to help automate that and have it available in Google Analytics, like in a report like this, so that you can not only analyze and optimize right from GA data, but also build some segmentation around it, filter it, and dig deeper into understanding really what's valuable. And later on, we're going to talk about the attribution reports that also become available. So with Analyzely, it's a way to automate this process. And to talk quickly how this works, again, I don't see any questions or anything in the chat pane, so I'm just going to keep going. Analyzely, when you set up an account just at analyze.ly, you can first decide or tell Analyzely where you want the data to come from, which marketing channels do you actually want to integrate. So we'll take Facebook, for example. Through Analyzely's interface, you can actually log into Facebook, authenticate saying, yes, Analyzely can access my ad data from Facebook. And that's step one, getting the data source connected to Analyzely, where you're going to pull the clicks, impressions, and cost data down from. Step two is telling Analyzely where you want to send it. So you want to send it into your Google Analytics property and views. So in Google Analytics, you have to do a little bit of setup to actually tell GA that you will be giving it Facebook data or some cost data very soon. And then in Analyzely, you have to tell or direct it to which Google Analytics property you actually want to send that cost data. So step one is the data source. Step two is the output, which is which Google Analytics property. And then step three is just the automation. How often do you want to do this import? Do you want to do it one-off for the last 6 months? Do you want to set it up for a daily reoccurring so you have it every single day available, all of your non-Google owned channel data available in GA? Most of our clients, actually all of our clients, when we set this up, we set up the reoccurring daily import from all of their marketing channels. One thing I want to touch on is taking this a step further, and we do have a separate webinar in the next couple of months to talk about advanced integrations with Google Analytics. But when considering all the data you're bringing into GA around your online marketing channels, if your business does any kind of offline advertising, but more specifically, any kind of offline conversions, such as your lead generation site, so the ultimate sale comes offline, or anything like that, you can still bring in that data into GA so that you can help, or not help, so you can be able to analyze your advertising spend online as it impacts offline activity. So using the same kind of flow, you can capture information from your users on the websites they're engaging into your CRM, bring that back into GA and connect the offline and online data. So let me take you through an example that we're showing here. For a particular client, they sell products both online on their website directly, e-commerce, but they also have lead generation forms as well as click to call. So there's a unique phone number that shows up when a user comes to the website that they can call a sales team that can close them offline. Or they fill out a form for a salesperson to give them a call, and again, they can get closed offline as well, even though their source originated on the website. So the problem was that this client was investing a lot of marketing dollars, a lot of advertising spend on channels to get people to the website. But if they closed ultimately offline or somewhere else, that attribution was gone. There was a lot of marketing spend, but no conversions tied to it. So what we did, we helped them integrate their CRM system where they're tracking their offline sales, offline deals back into GA to connect the online activity of those users, including which marketing channel or advertising campaign they use to get to the site, back to the offline conversion. So what was unlocked is, as you can see here, different campaigns that were closing consumers offline. So these campaigns brought users to the website, but ultimately the salesperson gave them a call and the conversion happened in their CRM system or just off the website. So this visibility was now available. So this is a step further from what I was describing before as far as how to set up the Google Analytics tracking, but it's certainly possible and something to consider as potentially an end goal. And for this particular client, they were able to see 15% of offline conversions tracked back to an online advertising campaign, specifically from paid search. So 15% of their paid search campaigns were not being attributed to any conversion until we put this in place. So they can give a lot more value to their paid search campaigns that are advertising there, because it is actually driving users to the site that ultimately get closed later on. So really, through their attribution and their conversion methodology up, and now they have all this insights and different data that they can use to reallocate their marketing budget moving forward. Okay, I'm going to take a quick second here and see if anyone has any questions. Doesn't look like I've lost anyone, so no questions, no comments. So let's continue on. The last part, I guess, the last couple slides that I want to go through is all about how to use the different reports in Google Analytics, the different attribution reports, to actually begin measuring and optimize, not even measuring, just optimizing your advertising spend. I have some examples of how we've done this for our clients and some of the methodologies that we use. So hopefully this is helpful as you begin thinking of other ways you want to actually improve your advertising spend. When it comes to attribution, the basic formula is you need to track your acquisition, where users are actually coming from to get to your website or app, but also you need to have conversion tracking in place. And really conversions can be the ultimate purchase if you're an e-commerce retailer, or any actions that lead up to that particular big conversion, if you will. So downloading documents, click to call, filling out contact us forms, anything that you consider an action or objective of your website or what you want your consumers to do, tracking those as conversions and tying those back into what sources brought the users to the site that ultimately completed that action. That's what attribution is all about. Really, it's assigning credit for conversions to different channels. So if paid search is bringing in all of your sales, paid search gets a lot of the credit. So that's attribution there. What we like to talk about when we think of attribution is going beyond that last interaction or that last channel that might have drove the ultimate conversion. So we'll talk a little bit about multi-channel funnels and multiple attribution models and how you can use those in GA. Before this section, I talked about how to track your campaigns offsite to make sure that it's visible in Google Analytics using the UTM tracking, configuring your channel groupings, etc. Within Google Analytics, you also need to configure your actual conversions. And this can be one of two things, either your goals or e-commerce. So e-commerce is pretty straightforward. There's a technical implementation around how to set up tracking for your orders, revenue, products purchased, etc. With goals, this can be split into a variety of different things, but ultimately it's just what you want your consumers to do when they get to your site. So it can be a macro conversion, which is the ultimate thing that you want your users to do. So from a lead generation standpoint, maybe filling out a form or giving your team a call. As far as micro conversions, those can be any activities that lead up to a macro conversion. So watching a video, engaging with your content, signing up for an email newsletter, things like that can also be tracked as goals that you might want to see how your advertising spend or advertising channels are contributing to those different actions, but they lead up to the bigger goal or the macro conversion. Once you have goals in e-commerce tracking in place, along with tracking your campaigns and different channels that are bringing users to your site, together you can unlock the attribution reports or the multi-channel funnel reports. So with Google Analytics, there's capability to see, or Google Analytics automatically tracks returning users. So if they've been to your site once or 10 times, Google knows it's going to be the same user, assuming it's the same browser and they don't clear their cookies. But with that, they can see every single time a user comes to your website or to your mobile app, they can see what channel or what source brought them there. And it keeps a track of all previous sessions and sources that might have brought users to your site. And with the attribution and multi-channel funnel reports, it tries to display all of the different channels that might have been engaged by different consumers as it led up to a conversion. So to talk through this widget here on the left, this shows all the different channels that users might have engaged with that led up to a conversion. And the overlap here shows 59 conversions came from consumers that at least touched organic search, direct traffic, meaning they typed in your website URL and came directly to the site, paid search, and a social network channel before converting. All 4 of those touch points had to occur at least once in their conversion funnel or their consumer journey before a conversion happened. That's really powerful to understand because in most of the reports, the standard out-of-the-box reports, it only shows you one channel that drove a conversion, the last channel, the last one that was engaged with before the purchase or the goal occurred. These reports show you the overlap or the multiple channels that might have contributed to a conversion. This report here on the right, this is the multi-channel funnel top conversion path. What this is showing is the same thing, but it actually lays out the path in order, in aggregate across all of your different conversions. What you can see here is, for example, row 3, paid search email. This means 1,063 conversions had had these two channels interacted, or the consumers that converted within this section here first clicked on a paid search ad, then came back and ultimately converted from an email click. In your normal reports, you would only see email as having all of these conversions attributed to it. But with the multi-channel funnel reports, you can see that paid search might deserve some of the credit because it actually introduced the consumers to your website that ultimately had them come back via email to complete the conversion. Some of our clients actually argue that the first touch, or the first thing that brings users to the site, should receive all the credit or most of the credit because it was very introductory. They're confident their email marketing, social marketing, and actually just retargeting efforts can bring users back to close them. It's all about growing that new user base. So more weight or more conversion value or attribution should be given to the first channel or first touch point along the consumer journey. You can see here also, for example, in row 7, organic search was the first interaction that a user clicked on to come to the site. They left, but then came back via paid search and ultimately converted. And 391 conversions for a value of $74,000 actually came from this path here, where again, the normal reports, the regular reports, not the conversion or multi-channel funnel attribution reports, would only show the last click, only show paid search as driving all these conversions and that value. So this is a really useful report to see the full impact that your different channels might have towards conversions. So as I mentioned before, Google Analytics has automatic integrations with other Google products. Namely, with Google Analytics Premium, you can connect with DoubleClick, which is a media management platform, as well as with YouTube, a video advertising platform. And what you can see once you integrate these platforms together with Google Analytics is more information around not only clicks or engagements with different channels, but potentially also just impressions. For example, on this image here on the top right, you can see how many times there was an impression from YouTube or your display campaigns, as long as on the Google Display Network through AdWords. You can see how many times there was an actual impression or view of an ad as it impacted a conversion. So, for example, on this row 5, you can see there was a display video ad. That's what that little symbol right there, it's like a movie symbol. There was at least 50 conversions that started with a YouTube video impression, but then users came back organically via organic search and then finally via paid search and completed the conversion. Also, with DoubleClick in Google Analytics Premium, you can see click-throughs, which means the ad was actually clicked on and the user came to the site to ultimately convert, but also view-throughs. So as long as the ad was just seen by the user, but then they came from any other channel, you would still be able to get that attribution or get that conversion data in Google Analytics. Okay, we have a quick question. I'm gonna read it out loud. The multi-channel funnel tracking is based on the user's consistent use of a single browser without cookies cleared. Correct. That is correct, exactly. So the big caveat here is that with Google Analytics, these reports are on, it can be on anonymous or known users because it's all about the single browser. So if I was to come to our website, infotrustllc.com, on one browser 3 times with 3 different channels, and then a 4th time I would come on my mobile phone or a different browser completely, I would actually be seen as 2 different users, and I wouldn't be associated within the same path. So these paths all do share a single browser to stitch the multi-sessions together. So that was a good question. There are some reports and capabilities with Google Analytics to do user stitching across browsers, across devices, if you implement user ID, which essentially means if you have a login capability with your site or app, then as users log in and become known, Google on their end can actually stitch multiple devices together as long as the ID is present with those sessions on the multiple devices and multiple browsers. And that attribution modeling is much, much different because it goes beyond just multi-channels to multi-devices as well. We don't get into that in this particular webinar, but that's certainly possible as well. By default, though, it is a single browser-based view. Good question. Let me know if I did not answer or if you need clarifications as well. Okay, so we have about 15 more minutes and just a few more slides that I want to go through. So I want to talk through the attribution modeling report and how this works. This is a screenshot from one of our clients that is using the attribution reports that we use with them for analysis and optimizing their advertising spend. Essentially, when you go to the model comparison tool under the attribution section, you'll see your multi-channel groupings listed as the first column or the dimension, as well as last interaction as the default model shown. What this means is which channels are driving conversions and the highest conversion value when they were the last thing that was interacted with or the last thing clicked before the user actually committed. Now that's not valuable just by itself because almost all the reports in Google Analytics show that. So what we always do is compare models or look at a totally new model. So by clicking the drop down where it says last interaction or the different attribution models, you can apply a different model and see how that might compare. For example, in this screenshot, we're looking at last interaction compared to first interaction, meaning if any channel or source medium was the first thing that a user clicked on, even if they came back multiple times and converted with a different channel, give all the credit, all the conversion value to that first click. So the first thing that brought the user to the site will get the entire conversion value and all the conversions attributed to it. So when you compare that against last interaction, you can begin to see which channels might not be getting as much credit in normal reports because they're only good or they're better at bringing users in earlier in the funnel or introducing them to your brand, but maybe not on closing them on the brand. Typically, we see with our clients that retargeting, email marketing, direct traffic, and even sometimes search, but usually organic search, are really good at last interaction because users already know your brand. They already know what they want. They've come multiple times as consumers do, and they're committed now to buying. So that last email or that last retargeting effort, or it's just fresh in their mind, they do a search, is what drove them to purchase. First interaction is usually when they're not fully aware or maybe more exploring and your brand comes across them and they begin to check out what you have to offer. So things like display or organic search as well or paid search tend to be a little bit higher performing in first interaction just because users might not have the intent quite yet to purchase, but you gather their interest. I'm not saying you need to spend more on advertising or do more on display or anything like that. It's just something that we've noticed when working with clients. Have your data tell the story. So in this particular example, we see Criteo as the first column here, or the first dimension. It has 605 conversions when it was the last thing clicked, but only 143 when it was the first thing clicked in the consumer path. This actually makes sense because Criteo is primarily a retargeting platform, meaning it's not designed to be the first thing a user sees. It's designed to be something to bring the users back after they've already been to your site. But you can see that as a first interaction, it's not as helpful or that's not really where it lives. So it's more effective as last interaction, or when comparing it to a data-driven model, which is a Google Analytics Premium only feature, but essentially it's Google's own algorithm that takes into account all of your data in GA to build a model for you on how you should think about attributing conversions to different channels. So based off of all the touch points, all the different paths, and how much all your marketing channels actually cost, it builds this algorithm saying, here's how we think your different marketing channels should have, or what credit each marketing channel should take. And you can see that Criteo actually has a lot of data-driven conversions tied to it, which probably means it's not the best at first interaction at bringing people into the funnel. It's not super great at closing them, but it's very, very valuable in the middle of the funnel, in the middle of the consumer journey to continuously remind and re-engage your consumers. On contrast, you can see something like Bing here, which is the second one, Bing Organic, might not be the best at actually closing, but it's much more valuable as a first interaction because it's more introductory. So if you were to look at just last interaction in the normal reports, you might think, well, Bing's not really as effective as these other channels, so maybe we should eliminate it. But that actually might hurt you in other channels, other conversions, because it's actually more introductory as well. So the point of these reports is just to look more holistically at your channels beyond just the last interaction. One powerful tool within Google Analytics is conversion segments, which allow you to isolate different channels that are driving different conversions along different points in the consumer journey. For example, you can see here some default segments where you can apply you want to see all the conversions where first interaction is paid advertising. That means the first click that brought a user to the site was from a paid advertisement. How many conversions occurred when that was the case versus when the first interaction was organic search. The way we like using conversion segments to isolate different conversion paths or conversion types is when we apply it, the any interaction is fill in channel name. For example, when we set up in this particular report, any interaction is organic search or any interaction is social, that basically means at any point along the funnel or the consumer journey that a user can engage with different channels, if social or organic search were at least one of the touch points, it was either the first, the last, or somewhere in the middle, as long as the user interacted once with this channel and then ultimately converted, I want you to count the conversion within this bucket. So there might be some overlap. Any interaction is organic search and any interaction is social. If consumers clicked on both a social and organic link across their multiple sessions, the conversion would be added into both of these buckets. But the value here is to see more holistically how these channels are performing. Instead of isolating any channel under one particular place, like if it was earlier in the funnel or later in the funnel or somewhere in the middle, you can see if it was anywhere in the funnel, I want to see if it was helpful. And you can see that social, in this case, is much more helpful for this particular client than organic search when considering the entire consumer journey. Even when looking at last click, it might seem that organic search is really good at driving the bottom line and social is not. Across the entire consumer journey, social, according to this data, is a channel worth investing in or worth keeping the investment high. So hopefully that makes sense as far as applications of the conversion segments. When you pull up the multi-channel funnel or attribution report, you'll see some options here at the top, such as which conversions you want to look at. If you have goals and e-commerce set up or multiple goals, you can isolate it to just specific types of conversions and how users are engaging with your channels to drive certain specific actions. You can also change the look back window. So a lot of this, was social, for example, in this conversion segment, any interaction is social. Was it at all part of the consumer journey? You do need somewhat of a time bound to that. So within 60 days, all the conversions that happen within that 60 days was social part of that consumer journey at all. That's kind of what the look back window would mean there. So I want to take you through a few more examples here that we've actually delivered to clients or pointed out without actually showing who they are, of course. Now, with using Analyzely in the cost data import, we can actually unlock the spend metric in the attribution reports and begin analyzing against this. So for this particular client, they wanted to compare different search engines. This was a US-based client. They're spending a significant amount of money both in Bing and on AdWords, and they want to see which is performing better or how they should think about their marketing allocation and marketing budget. So clearly you can see that Bing is not having as high of an investment as AdWords, therefore the conversion value is much less than what Google's bringing to the table, but the return on advertising spend is nearly double. So though the amount of conversions and the amount of sessions generated from Bing ads is significantly less, because it doesn't cost as much, the competition is less potentially, the return on advertising spend is double that of AdWords. So perhaps it's worth continuing investing in Bing or even investing a little bit more just as a test to see if you can keep that return on advertising spend ratio high, but drive your bottom line, get more profit, and make your dollars or your advertising spend work even more efficiently for you. So you can see, and this is across multiple models, not just last interaction, but also first interaction. It's even more positive, or linear, where you give equal conversion value to any channel along the consumer's journey. It's all equal value for the conversion. Now we also want to compare this just against the normal reports as well to see other information. So when looking at Google CPC versus Bing CPC, You can see that the percentage of new sessions is higher in Bing, so it's good at introducing the brand potentially a little bit more, higher engagement. But again, overall transaction count and revenue is much higher with Google paid search. So it's not to say completely eliminate Google AdWords because it's not as high return on advertising spend. It's more just here are ways that you can play with your advertising budget or optimize your advertising spend to see what actually drives the highest bottom line, not just sessions and revenue, because it might be unprofitable. Okay, let's continue. One more, going another layer deep. So depending on how you're tracking different things in Google Analytics and at what level, if you're tracking beyond source and medium to campaign content keyword, all of these attribution reports can be seen at that level, at the lowest level that you're tracking. For this particular client, we actually pulled in spend data at the campaign level. So this is between AdWords and their other marketing channels that have campaigns. And what we did here, we filtered this attribution report to look at any campaigns and ad content or ad name combination, sorting by spend, so the ones that we spent the most on, but that drove absolutely no conversions across any model. Meaning, even though it's getting clicks and generating sessions, hence we have spend, it never generated a conversion, whether it was the last click or the first click in the entire consumer journey, or even somewhere in the middle. It brought absolutely no conversion value. People are clicking on it and they're not converting within the time frame that we're looking at this. We're spending, for this particular client, it's showing here that $1,000 in one quarter and $500 the quarter before that in total only brought one conversion, where the $1,000 in the most recent quarter brought no conversions. So this is clearly a campaign or an ad combination that needs to be optimized, reviewed, or eliminated because it's a potential waste of advertising spend. So this is a useful report when you're trying to think, how do I get rid of the waste but only keep my marketing spend in the channels that work? So with our clients, we look at multi-attribution models side by side and compare it against spend and conversion value as well. In this case, we're sorting by conversions and cost per acquisition. The last report that I want to show that doesn't really have to do with attribution as much, but it is another way to potentially optimize your advertising spend or think about it differently, are benchmarking reports. Essentially, benchmarking reports, if you enable your Google Analytics account to do this, essentially you have to share your data anonymously with Google to access other competitor data, which is also anonymous, all in GA, so that you can compare metrics in aggregate against each other. So within the same vertical, within the same size of site or daily traffic, you can see what, on average, across the industry, you compare as far as how much traffic you're bringing to your site from different channels or how much engagement you're bringing. In this particular report, you can see for this client, when comparing how much they are bringing new session or just sessions from paid search, display, or email against their own industry, against their vertical and client size, or visit size, they are very behind at how much paid search traffic, display, and email traffic that they're bringing to their site. So their competitors are doing a lot more in these three channels, and they're doing a lot more to get actual visitors and engagement. On the flip side, social, they're winning for sure. So the amount of social traffic that's coming to this client's website is actually competitively much better than other organizations within their vertical, within their size of daily sessions. Social traffic is actually much, much higher for them. So this is another way to start thinking about your different marketing channels and which ones might need more focus. Social is doing all right in this case, competitively wise, for those organizations that share their data anonymously. But paid search, display, and email, that might need some work or potentially a little bit more focus and maybe a little bit more investment as well to drive those sessions up and stay competitive. So we have just a few more minutes, and I wanted to close on just a case study that Google recently published and put on their Google Analytics blog around a client of ours, Mom's World, here in the MENA region. They're e-commerce website that sells baby products and kid products to mothers across the region. And essentially their goal when we started working with them was to increase online sales. Of course, they're a retailer online, but also lower cost of acquisition and really maintain a high return on ad spend, or just be very data driven with their advertising and their marketing channel investment that they're working on. So what we did, we helped implement a lot of enhanced tracking, see their inventory levels in GA, but also use Analyzely to bring in the spend data from their different marketing channels so that they can have the information like return on advertising spend and those attribution reports available to them. And through some, after this setup and through some analysis and optimization and tweaks on their advertising spend, we were able to see results of increase across the board with their e-commerce conversion rate, other e-commerce metrics, but also their return on advertising spend across their top channels was 300%. So we eliminated the waste of any channels that were not bringing a positive return on advertising spend, focused all marketing dollars on those top channels, and achieved a 3-to-1 ratio for return. So their advertising dollars are really going far as bringing back that return and driving their bottom line up. So this case study is available if you'd like to see how it was done, or feel free to reach out if you want more information about this. I still see no questions in chat pane, so I guess for that we reached the end. We have several other webinars coming up and events related to Google Analytics. So feel free to check out our website and sign up for some upcoming events. You'll get emails about that. This particular webinar was recorded, so you'll get an email very soon on how to access this webinar as well as the slides, the downloadable slides. But of course, if you have any additional questions that we did not cover, or as you get started with your optimization of your advertising spend, feel free to drop us a line. I'll hang around for a few more minutes in case there's any last minute questions, but otherwise, thank you so much for joining, and we hope to see you at a future event. Thank you so much.